So hi everyone and welcome. It's a new EDUKWEST. I'm Kirsten Winkler and as always we are on the search for better education. My guest today is Henry Reich. He is the creator of a very popular YouTube channel called Minute Physics. So welcome Henry to the program. Glad to have you.
Glad to be here. Thanks, Kirsten.
So maybe you would like to share a little bit, just sort of in one sentence or very, very short, what is Minute Physics all about?
Minute Physics, for me, I guess, and I guess for everyone else who watches on YouTube, is about learning and getting excited about physics topics in a short period of time. It's about boiling down all of the detail in certain areas of physics into the core points and the core ideas, and the goal is that anybody can watch a video and have some sense and learn something about physics without having to have a college education.
Mm-hmm. Right. However, what about your background? So what is your sort of background or qualification to break complicated things in physics down and really talk about the essence to a large audience?
Well, I went to Grinnell College for undergrad. I majored in math and physics. I have a master's in physics from the Perimeter Institute, which is in Waterloo, Ontario, and now I'm actually getting a MFA in film production at the University of Southern California. So I'm going, I've done science and I'm doing film, and I always check my content with my ex-classmates or my friends over at the Perimeter Institute as well.
Okay, so basically you bring the two essential skills to the table. You have the scientific knowledge, obviously, on the one side, and now you're sort of getting more into the filmmaking, really just for the Minute Physics channel and series, or is it a deeper interest and you maybe want to grow things and spread into other niches or verticals?
Well, at this point, I love all of filmmaking. So I just finished directing a short film for school that's has nothing to do with physics, and that's the sort of thing. I obviously anything I do is going to be well informed by the fact that I have this science and physics background, and I do think there's a sort of paucity of good science in Hollywood films, basically in modern filmmaking. So I definitely try to bring science to the table a lot more, and I feel like that the medium of film or YouTube videos, that sort of thing, is a great medium for reaching a large number of people and educating a large number of people.
Right. So talking about large numbers, your channel currently has more than 2 million uploaded video views, more than 40,000 subscribers, and you went a little bit in our intro into the concept of Minute Physics, and I mean the name also has it. So you really try to explain the thing or the question, the topic within 1 minute, right?
Yes, I try to. Sometimes I go over. My longest one has been 1 minute and 30 seconds. But
however,
it's not called 1 minute physics. It's called Minute Physics. So it could be minute.
Right. Right.
But yes, I think it's important to try to be able to distill the core points of any ideas in science or in other areas. If you talk about giving an elevator speech for whatever you do, and that's really just distilling the core of the idea. And I think it's incredibly important, because if you can do that, then you can tell people very easily. It gives you kind of a road guide as to when you're trying to explain somebody, whatever you're trying to explain, you have that as your roadmap, and it can help them understand where you're going.
So it's really deeper conceptually designed rather than only catering the YouTube audience, as we often hear that you have the famous 2 minutes, and then the attention span is of an average YouTuber at least is over.
Yeah. Well, I think it's lucky that that's the case, that I've chosen to take this route in this medium. But yeah, I think it is important to try to do these sorts of things in just a minute, because it presents a great challenge. It's fun to try to figure out what you can do in a minute. But I think that if you can't do in a minute, then what are you going to do with an hour? You know?
Right. Got it.
And I think the simplicity is also a big part of it, because I know that if you watch lots of other modern science and physics documentaries in particular, you'll get things like Brian Greene's Elegant Universe and all these other ones. And while they're great and have great content and great science, their approach is very much of really fancy, flashy graphics and complicated diagrams and talking about really the weirdness of the world and all this crazy stuff. But the sense that you get is that it's so crazy and so hard to understand that the user, or the viewer, immediately, I feel, kind of shuts off the idea that they can understand it, and they go into kind of the shock and awe mode, where they're amazed, but they refuse to believe that they can ever understand it. And I think that by drawing things as stick figures on a white piece of paper and keeping it very simple and clean, it makes people feel like, you know, it's accessible. And I think that's a very important goal.
I already mentioned more than 40,000 subscribers. Then tell me, besides what you have just shared with us, how do you build your following on YouTube?
Well, I've been very lucky because Minute Physics is the sort of content that isn't that typical on YouTube. I mean, there's Khan Academy, there's a couple other ones that have gotten attention, but it's very atypical for YouTube, and it's something that I think the mainstream news media, because there's lots of science media, really likes the idea of. And so I've been really lucky that I've gotten plenty of proper media coverage, whereas other people who try to grow a YouTube channel, if they're doing a YouTube channel about doing makeup videos, how do you do makeup, or how do you play this video game or something, they're not going to get coverage in New Scientist or The Guardian, so they have to do a lot of work. So I'm very grateful and lucky in that case. One of the big things, of course, at the very beginning was reaching out to some of those news organizations and saying, look, here, check this out. At this point, I have enough subscribers and enough followers that I get stuff. Once I post things, it kind of has been getting picked up automatically by a number of places and websites around the internet. So, so it's wonderful. In that way. So I just do a little bit. I do a little bit of promotion for each one, but then at this point, it's not as much work to actually reach, and it's much more natural as well to have people find it and discover it for themselves and get excited about it rather than trying to force something onto them. So really, I mean, the big thing with YouTube is because there are a lot of people who talk like, how do I get big on YouTube and how do you do well? I happen to work for a YouTube channel as well called Freddie W, which is the 6th most subscribed one. So compared to them, I'm like a flea. But
however, I mean, Freddie, well, I would say you actually share at least some part of the audience. And I mean, as today, being a geek has become cool. So it's not at all a drawback like maybe 15 years ago. Definitely on the Freddie Wong channel, I mean, they also explain how they do their videos, and so in that respect it's also educational. However, the Minute Physics has probably, of course, a more core audience, but why would you say, you mentioned Khan Academy, and there are, of course, a few others, but why are specifically science channels and maybe a little bit wider, so projects in science and new media becoming so increasingly popular compared to, for example, I don't know, is that successful YouTuber in languages, for example?
That's a good question. I haven't thought about the language issue. I think that science is something that people are always very interested in, and it appeals to the people, to the inner desire or feeling of, normally people think when they go on the internet that they're wasting time. And so if somebody, I've gotten comments on my video saying, how did I get tricked into learning on a Saturday night? And I think people, it kind of satiates their kind of guiltiness in some way, about being on the internet and going on YouTube videos if they can find education there. And because so much of our modern life, like it or not, so much of our modern life takes place on the internet, and so it's a natural place to start having this content that people might have originally looked to other media sources for, like documentaries or television or something like that. And I think one of the reasons why the science part of it is kind of lagged a few years behind, the video game part of these things, is because most of the early adopters and the people running YouTube channels, successful YouTube channels, are young. They're mostly between their ages probably of like 14 and 25, I would say, for the most part. And so you're not getting that many people in that age group, especially if they've been doing it since they were 15, even if they're not 25. Most of those people are unlikely to have gone through, a higher education and postgraduate studies in the field, so they're not as likely to be doing something as deeply educational. A lot of people do the kind of the college level intro or senior level from high school or primary or secondary school physics, where they'll talk about, this is force equals mass times acceleration, and this is Newton's laws, and they'll just kind of read out of the textbook. But there hasn't really been that much that's gone beyond that and talks about current research and current topics and deeper things, which I think I'm in a unique position to be able to bring that to people, and because I think people want to hear about it, but they maybe don't have the capacity or time or the years of study to go and read a scientific paper off the archive or something like that. So,
and in your videos, we actually only hear your voice. As you mentioned before, you draw on and explain on a white background. So, I mean, I totally get it from the point of view to make it really simple and accessible, and sort of on the other hand, when you are in the process of creating a video, what are your thoughts, like how to make an educational subject, physics subject, interesting for your audience?
Oh, that's a hard one. Each video is different. Each topic is different. One thing I try to do is try to figure out why it's interesting to me and why I'm excited about the topic. And I'll try to find interesting things about it. And some of them are just inherently interesting ideas that I am fascinated with, and that are not by any means my ideas. I've just heard them and I get to pick them up and use them, share them with other people, which is great. Like the last video I did on the color pink not being real color of light.
The minus green.
The minus green. That wording, I believe, is my idea. I'm not sure I've seen that anywhere else. Everyone else knows it's something that when you take out the green, but just.
Yeah, and I mean it really stuck as sort of a key element of that short video. So it's obviously very effective.
Yeah, and I think also a lot of there can be a lot of humor that gets injected in the pictures as well, because I don't just draw equations and diagrams and things. I'll add in
mountains,
animals, have sheep mountains and and rocket ships and things, but all in a very simplistic way. So that, and normally I don't do those things just with no reason. I will do them, and they'll actually be part of telling the story I try to make a little story basically each week about a certain topic, and so the characters kind of propagate throughout. Maybe not through the whole video, but through at least each section of the video. You'll see a little character, and you can follow them through, and I think that helps people to follow the thread better than videos.
And now, obviously, every YouTube channel and also every educational YouTube channel is different. And you said that the interest of traditional media in people in science, but doing something on the internet, definitely helped you, at least at the beginning, to grow a little bit, become more known, and eventually also build an audience, whereas now it's sort of fulfilling or spreading like this. And I mean, within a couple of days, you have between 100,000 to 200,000 views on a video, so that's great. But so if somebody wanted to start a YouTube channel in education, would you actually have certain steps you would say that always works, or is it too individual of a case?
Well, no, there are certain things that go, and not just for education, but go for all YouTube channels. If you look at all successful ones, like part of the reason that I feel Minute Physics has been as successful as it has is because I was working for Freddie Wong and Brandon Latch, run Freddie W, and they know an awful lot. They're very good businessmen on YouTube. They know how to run. They know the things to do that make you successful or make you not successful on YouTube. So basically, I mean, and some of them are kind of no-brainers, but you just have to stick to it. So make short videos, but the videos have to be appropriate for the length of the content. If you have a minute worth of content, you make a minute-long video. If you have 5 minutes worth of content that will actually keep people entertained for 5 minutes, make a 5-minute video. Don't make a 5-minute video when you only have a minute of content and just talk for the other 4 minutes, you know. And releasing regularly is important because then people understand that you're committed to this, and they have a reason to subscribe and come back because they know that it's a kind of an agreement that you have between yourself and the audience that you're going to create content and they're going to come back and watch it. And the same way that, you know, if you watch a television program, it's on every weeknight or once a week or whatever like that, people will come back because they know when it's going to happen. The other thing is really just to make videos or content about something that you're passionate about and find your approach to it. Don't try to take somebody else's approach. You know, what one person does and works for them, even if it's really successful, unless you're coming from the exact same background as them, the same perspective, if you try to do it, you may get a little bit of success based on the fact that you've copied somebody else and are, you know, siphoning users off of them basically, but really you should take your own approach, and it may be very similar to other people's, but you should find your own voice and make videos that you're passionate about. If you make things you're passionate about and things that you think are interesting, there are probably other people out in the world that think that's interesting. Depending on what you like, there may be more people that find it interesting or less, but people are still the ultimate goal. You know, you're going to get people interested in what you're doing by making interesting content, and not by a lot of people think that to get big on YouTube you just have to be a social media guru and friend people and ask for box things and all this other stuff, which ultimately, you know, you may get a couple people to subscribe initially, but they're not going to come back and watch your videos if they're not interested in your videos. And that's ultimately the goal. You know, that everyone measures things on YouTube by how many subscribers do you have, but what ultimately matters is how many people are watching your content, because you're creating content for an audience, and so the idea of having subscribers is that it means you have an automatic audience right away for a new video, but your videos may get watched, and most YouTube channels that are successful, their videos are not watched just by their subscribers. I have 40,000 subscribers, but I have, you know, the last video has 150,000 views. That means that only less than a third of the people who watch the video are actually subscribers.
Yeah.
And the same with the Freddie W videos. They have 2.5 million subscribers, but they'll get 5 to 10 million views on a video. And so, again, not, you know, a smaller portion of the actual audience is their subscribers. And so I think that's an important thing to remember, that while the whole idea of like how many subscribers you have is a great kind of you know, rubric for telling how successful somebody has been in the past, it's really just it's not the direct, you know, it's kind of an indirect indicator. It's not the direct goal.
It's a little bit like the Twitter followers. doesn't always, when I have 20,000 followers, but I follow 15,000 people, the ratio is actually not that great, and doesn't really mean that I have that much of an influence. So, yeah, I think subscribers are always a certain indicator, and that's good, and also, I mean, important for the advertising and so on, and the revenues of a channel, but in the end, as you pointed out, doesn't say or doesn't tell the whole story to it. Yeah.
And I think that's something that's going to be moved. It's going to be changing in the future. Like right now, YouTube, or historically, it's been very much its own thing, and people have just had content on YouTube, and I think because the web is so big that you don't necessarily want to limit yourself to YouTube, and so when you have your YouTube subscribers, but if there's a lot of people who don't do the YouTube subscription thing, but they're still interested in your content, then having content posted on other places, like on New Scientist or whatever, is wonderful. And it's a way of kind of getting your content out there to everyone who wants to see it, basically, making it available, so that and ultimately for education especially, that's really important, is that content should be as freely available as possible to as many people as possible. And that's one of the things that I always get frustrated about when there's paid for lectures or if you have to pay for articles to read articles online. I love the Physics Archive, archive.org, because you can read physics articles, like physics research papers, for free, and they're available. Like people publish there before they send it to Nature or answer physics review letters or something. And if they do end up sending it to Science or Nature, then you have to pay $15 or $30 per article if you don't have an institutional subscription. So for somebody who's not part of a university that has that access necessarily, it's great to have open source material and freely available educational material, because I think that's what Khan Academy does wonderfully, is that they have an incredibly large set of material available for free for anyone around the world via the internet. So, and that's kind of my goal is not to make thousands of videos in the same style as Khan Academy, because he already has that pretty well covered. If somebody wants to sit down and actually try to learn calculus over the course of 10 hours, they can go over there and do that. So I don't need to do that because he's done a great job. But if somebody wants to learn what is calculus about and why might I be interested in it, or what is physics about, why might I be interested in this topic, then they can come here to Minute Physics and get a minute overview of it, and then decide if they, what they think about. So. And
sort of the other challenge from a more producer technical point of view, when our audiences are getting increasingly sophisticated and want to see professionally made videos, what is sort of on the technical side, what do you use, and do I need it from the beginning, or can I upgrade later? What would you recommend?
Well, for my videos, it's very easy in the sense that, and for a lot of videos, on YouTube videos, you can do things with if you know how to use the tools, you can do sophisticated things with simple and free software. Like, if you have, not to make a plug here, but if you have a Mac computer and Apple software, you can, I record all of my audio on GarageBand, on Apple GarageBand. I do have a microphone, a nice microphone that I bought for $70. It's not that nice, but it's good enough for YouTube, and it's better than the microphone built in on my computer. And I record in GarageBand. The pictures I take, it's stop motion, not stop motion. It's time lapse photographs with an old digital camera. The camera doesn't even do video. I don't own a video camera. I own a still camera that I just do basically a time lapse photo series for each of the images. And it just takes a picture every second. And it's the sort of thing where the camera's actually broken. The memory card reader doesn't work. So I have to plug it into my computer and have it just download each picture as it takes it. But, it's a great way. I'm recycling, basically. I'm using a broken camera to do these videos. And then for editing, I do in fact use Final Cut Pro, because I do other proper editing for other videos. But you can do most of what I'm doing if you have really, really cheap, readily available software. And so it's much more, I think it's much more about using the tool. Because anytime you talk about these things, it's all about tools and what you can do with them. And so it's much more about your vision and your execution using the tools than what tools do you use. Now, obviously, certain tools are nicer and certain tools will take you longer to do the same thing.
That's right. Yeah.
And
so actually, it's more about the skills, how to get the most out of a for free or cheap product, actually, compared to maybe the very nice one, but you may not be able to afford it, at least at the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, that's the sort of thing. If you start off and want to just see how things would go, and that's really what I was doing when I started Minute Physics, was just I was curious what the response would be and how people would respond to it, and it's been a great response, so I definitely am going to keep doing it. But I started off, I have a broken digital camera, I have a 40-year-old tripod, I have some pieces of white cardboard, and an incandescent light from the hardware store that costs $3 that I bounce off of a white wall. So actually over in the corner of my room right here is my setup, and it's very simple. And because this kind of video is very simple, I also had to go on Crayola's website and buy a bulk set of 6 or 8 or 10 black markers, because they don't, when you buy the sets of markers, they come with one of every color, but also they've changed their design, so all of the markers, like if you look in the store, the marker itself is entirely colored black, and I like the ones that are white with a little bit of black on them. So, but actually, I tried out a lot of different kinds of markers, and the Crayola ones worked the best for what I'm doing. I think they're way better than anything else, which is funny because they're for kids, but it's great, so anybody can do it, because it's, a marker that everyone has, at least in the U.S., everyone has it in the school or at home. So it's, if you want to do, like Freddie W. does special effects videos and complicated stuff like that, then to get started you need more sophisticated tools, basically. You need things that can do fancier special effects, and you need a lot more time to learn to use those. But it's still the sort of thing where this day and age, that sort of stuff is readily available, where 15 years ago some of that software would have cost you $10,000. Now you can get it for $200, or you can get a trial that works for 30 days and you can play around with it and see, and then pay $500, or get a student edition for things that it's amazing the accessibility everyone has. And so really what it does is it levels the playing field in terms of access to the material, it's access to the tools, and it puts the focus much more on the content and what you can do. And so you get a lot more people making videos, which is why YouTube is so big, with lots of videos that don't get very many views, because anybody can make a video, and then the key becomes, can you make a video that other people want to watch?
And on average, how many hours of production go in 1 minute, so 60-second to 90-second final Minute Physics video?
Probably from inception of idea to posted on YouTube, I'd say about 12 to 14 hours of work per video, which may seem, some people think that's a long time to spend for a minute worth of video, but maybe other people think it's short. The big thing actually is that the longest part of it is the writing, is figuring out what idea I'm going to talk about and how to approach it, and then writing very carefully, because it's very hard to fit. If I had 5 or 10 minutes, I could be sloppier about what I say, and I can say more things. But if you only have a minute, you have to be very careful and very precise about how you word things and what you actually want to say. So that's definitely the longest part of the process. And then everything else is just kind of it's also the hardest part intellectually, right? The rest of it is kind of you do by rote. I talk, I record the interview, I edit it, I do the kind of
becomes automatic after a certain moment.
Yeah, the other parts of it become much kind of, once you have the foundation to go with, it's much easier to just move forward. But coming up with that idea at the beginning is hard.
Absolutely.
Again, it's kind of like once you have this core point, you know where you're going. You have your roadmap, and it's the same. It's the same if you on a bigger scale for like a YouTube channel or anything like this on the whole. It's kind of like a mission statement for an organization or whatever. Once you know what your goal is to do, then for your channel or for your video or for your organization, then anytime you have to make a decision, you just look at that goal and say, how can I best achieve this goal in this small, even if it's this tiny decision of, do I draw a sheep or do I not draw a sheep on this? And the question is, is it going to help sell this story or not?
Mm-hmm. Yes. You mentioned that very successful YouTubers like Freddie Wong, iJustine, and many more are also clever business people. What's it like having an educational channel? Can I make a living from it, or is it sort of an additional income for you?
I mean, for any channel, it's depending on how much time you can afford to put into it, and how much, what size of audience you have, you can make a living off it or not. I would say it would probably take a while to get to the point where you actually could be comfortable living off this sort of material. At the moment, it's nice. It's some extra money to to pay for parking or gas or food on weekends, sort of thing. But obviously people do, like, I'm employed by Freddie and Brandon.
Oh, okay.
They obviously have enough money, their income is enough that they can themselves live and employ other people. And I think that will be changing more, hopefully, in the next few years as advertising companies start to realize that the internet is actually very valuable, place to advertise, and people they pay much more for a 30-second spot on television, which is seen by less people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but it's still probably still this old this mindset of old media. That's the way it has been so far in making the transition to see the new innovative things as something that could actually also really drive business. Yeah,
definitely. So the hope, and maybe this is just a crazy hope that people who do YouTube for a living have, their hope is that over the next decade or however many years, as companies that advertise start to realize the value, it will become more competitive, and so the incomes it will be more something more along the lines of television, and also what that means is that sort of thing happens, you'll get a lot more professional people moving into doing it, because right now there are very few what you call traditionally professional YouTube channels. Some of them are music, like the Warner Music will have all their various channels for all the popular musicians, but like Fox News and NBC, and I'm just speaking of the US, or BBC, all these organizations, they don't have their main content stream on the internet, on YouTube. They have it on the internet on their own websites because they can control their own websites much better, but they don't have that sort of thing available on YouTube. Now, YouTube may not necessarily need to ever be something where you go to find, the BBC. It's in some ways it has its own life as videos that anybody can create and upload. But at the same time, I know that YouTube just recently announced they're going to be having what they call professional, and I mean, it's a silly word because people who work on YouTube and make a living off it are professional. They're professional YouTubers, they're professional video makers, but for some reason there's this idea that professional, like Hollywood filmmakers, basically have some other higher level of content creation, which they have more technical abilities and if they have larger budgets, you can do more ambitious and build sets and do have really cool complicated stuff. But ultimately, it's about the ideas and about the story you're trying to tell, whether it's this entertaining people with video game movies or makeup tutorials or physics education.
Right, yeah, I was also a little bit surprised by that statement, and I was asking myself, as I believe many YouTubers produce very professional videos, and I would call them professionals, so they would call, and this new YouTube idea or initiatives, this was to be seen a little bit off-putting, as these were basically the people who also made YouTube as big as it is today. So now saying we want to get in the real professionals is a little bit, I don't know, not so nice maybe.
Yeah, and I will admit though, like having worked on film sets and things, that YouTube film, like if you work on sets for YouTube people and work on YouTube videos, it's not the same as working on a professional film set.
Mm. But as you said, yes, it's also a lot about the budget. So
yeah, it's largely that sort of thing is about the budget and the number of people that you have doing things. And the thing is that's important to realize is that the people who are successful on YouTube are successful because they know kind of what it takes to make a good YouTube video. So their content is good, and that's why they're successful.
Right.
Whether or not you like their content is another story, but their content is appealing to a large audience, and so this new change in some ways seems like just a way for Hollywood to try to latch onto the fact that they're losing audience to the internet, and try to reclaim some of that by putting themselves out on the internet. And I mean, I'm curious what's going to happen, because I'm sure they'll make very professional looking material. This will be interesting.
That's the big question. Yeah.
Other than the fact that it looks professional.
And what are the next steps for Minute Physics?
Lots of things. The immediate next step is to finish this week's video. That's always the immediate next step. But I'm definitely interested in branching out in the sense of, and I've had people approach me about this, and this has been one of my kind of ideas from the beginning, is to do not just physics, but to bring some other sciences into it as well, and kind of broaden the scope of Minute Physics really. I've also been talking with some like places like textbook companies who are interested in having, because I've avoided doing the standard intro physics, like just your college level physics topics, like what is force and what is torque and what are Newton's laws and that sort of thing.
That's the 20 lessons you need to know, yeah.
Yeah, they're like the everyone who takes physics at like the end of secondary school, at the beginning of university, learns these things. There's like all these equations basically that you memorize. You like things that you try to do so you get the right answer on problems. And so I've shied away from that because that's not something that I can bring. Like I can't. So far, I have much more ability to bring new, interesting ideas to people from outside that realm. But ultimately, I think it would be fun to try to get a fresh take on those sorts of topics. So I've been in touch with a couple of textbook companies about creating kind of a video per chapter of an intro physics textbook, where you basically give an interesting take on the content of that chapter, so you can kind of get the essence of Newton's laws or torque or that sort of thing.
And digital textbooks are obviously very much in upcoming and also discussed. So, but also having an interactive component to maybe even a still more traditional oriented textbook. Then, yeah, it's a good idea.
Yeah, definitely. So it's still all very new, and I'm very new to it as much as it's as much as it seems like it's been successful, but it's amazing how fast things go on the internet.
Yeah.
And an example of that, if we'd had this interview a week ago, you would be saying that I had just over 30,000 subscribers and not 40,000. So I've grown 25% in just like a week and a half.
Wow.
And this thing happens, all the time. So things get big very quickly, and things also get small very quickly. And so the worry is, how do you prevent yourself from getting small? and how do you continue, making people interested and keeping people interested in what you're producing.
That's it, yeah. So for the moment, I think we should, of course, once again mention the YouTube channel. So you will find Henry under Minute Physics. And also on Facebook.com, your branding is always very consistent, so that's Minute Physics. Other good places where people could get in touch or reach out?
Twitter, Minute Physics on Twitter, and Google Plus, it's Henry Reich, because they don't allow you to have a non-personal profile yet.
I think yesterday I heard that they are eventually changing this policy now, so you will probably be able to switch over to Minute Physics, but Henry Reich once again. Okay.
And you can find all of those links on the top of the YouTube channel page. So if you go to youtube.com/minutephysics, on the very top bar there'll be a little box that looks like the Twitter box, the Facebook box, the Google Plus, and so that's a great way of keeping updated, because the videos come out once a week on Sunday afternoon or Monday morning, depending on what time zone you live in.
Great. So thanks so much for doing the interview, and I learned a lot more about YouTube, and it was fun. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Kirsten.